Today we celebrate the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord. It happens every so often that it lands on Sunday, and we have to forego the fourth Sunday of ordinary time. But as it's February 2nd, we recognize this particular beautiful feast, which is a significant event in the life of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and perhaps it should be one for ourselves in our own lives as disciples of Christ. In the gospel we heard from Luke, we are reminded of the Jewish customs surrounding the presentation of a firstborn son. And so Mary and Joseph, faithful to the law of Moses, bring Jesus to the temple to offer him to the Lord. Not unlike how we as Catholics continue this tradition with our own newborn babies, present them to be baptized. This is just part of, this is extending our desire to share the faith with those who come after us, with those our own children, right? And so we see this being done. And so this act of obedience on the part of Mary and Joseph is not merely an historical event. I think it does hold profound significance for us today if we have eyes to see and ears to hear. So as we reflect on this beautiful moment in the life of the Holy Family, we see how Mary and Joseph fulfill their obligations with great love and devotion. They present Jesus not just as a child, but as the light of the world. I don't think it's any surprise that there's other things that are that the world has found other ways to celebrate at this time and this moment. It's like which one of those, chicken or the egg. Right now in the world, people are wondering, what's this groundhog going to predict? Somehow they've deified a woodland creature because we're so desperate to be out of winter. What are you going to say, Puxatony Phil? I don't think it's any coincidence. And it has its roots. So that tradition, the Groundhog's Day, has kind of its roots within Germanic and Celtic pagan practices. And like so many, you can imagine, like you see without history, when Christianity has come into different various regions, we've tried to redirect that celebration when it's already. So these people were looking for. I think they were looking for hope in the midst of a cold season. Are we gonna make it out of this season? We got enough food? Is it going to be warm enough? We're running out of the wood pile's getting low. The canned goods are kind of running dry. Like, give me hope. Give me hope. And this day was not done coincidentally, especially in the life of the church. If you notice at the beginning, it was acknowledged that February 2nd is 40 days after the celebration of Christmas. And so traditionally, this technically would have ended the Christmas season. So anyone who still has their tree up or the lights up, you're still doing okay. Anyway, it was the extension of this, reminding us God himself coming to the world, the light of the world has entered. And we are reminded, and to kind of celebrate that Christ is the light of the world, we bless candles that remind us of that light. And so often, with the gift of candles, the light becomes more pronounced, and then we start feeling the heat. And so too in the world, and in the midst of winter, what do we notice first? I don't know about you, but this morning, the light crept up earlier. Last night, it set a little later. Then the warmth will come. Just like a candle Light is seen first, and then the heat is experienced. And so in the midst of our winter dreariness sometimes, hope arises. So too in the life of all, in the life of, life in general. Christ as the light of the world gives us hope. And we see this in the gospel itself. Simeon is a great example. He's a righteous and devout man. He recognizes the truth when he takes Jesus in his arms and he proclaims, "My eyes have seen your salvation." Here's a man who's been waiting. He was promised that he would experience the Christ, the Messiah that has been long awaited before he died. Can you imagine? I don't know when. It doesn't tell exactly when he heard this, when he got this proclamation. How long he's been sitting on this, waiting, watching. And then getting to this point in his life where every day, every moment is precious, and it's like, am I going to die? Potentially losing hope that this will be fulfilled. Clinging on, no, I must trust, I must maintain my fidelity. God has promised, as he said it in the burning bush, I will be with you as I will be with you. Right? And then he sees this moment, hope realized, hope fulfilled. He didn't get to see, I don't know if he got to see Easter Sunday. He may have died well before that, but this was enough for him. And so in this declaration, "My eyes have seen your salvation," in this declaration we see a powerful reminder that Jesus is the fulfillment of God's promise, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and glory for his people Israel. And so Simeon's words invite us to consider the light that Jesus brings into our own lives. In our modern world, we often encounter darkness, confusion, despair, division. I'd say that's true of all of human history, but we just happen to be living today, which we would call modern, just because we're the ones alive right now. So anytime you're alive, that's the modern history. In our modern world, we experience all these things. And yet in the midst of this, Jesus calls us to be bearers of his light. How do we respond to this call? Are we willing to present ourselves, our families, our communities to him? In presenting Jesus, Mary and Joseph also remind us of our duty as parents and guardians. Right? Whether we have children of our own, there's a parental role we play in our society, in our community, in our parish. We have, many of us have, we have spiritual children as well, right? And so we're called to present our children to the Lord, nurturing their faith and guiding them to know the love of Christ. And this is not just merely a one-time event. C'est fait, it's done. Graduated. You don't graduate from this. Right? It is a continuous journey of faith. Right? Baptizing a child and beginning that nurturing, it's the beginning of the journey. Going through the sacraments, these are beginnings of the journey. Even to this day, I even look at the relationship I have with my parents. We still can, it may not be explicit, so to speak, but we still continue this journey of faith together. It's changed a little. Some dynamics have flipped a little every so often, because sometimes I have to act as their spiritual father. But that's okay. But I never forget who they are. They're mom and dad. And every so often, we have to be reminded, okay, are they speaking to me as mom and dad, or as brothers and sisters in the Lord? And every so often, I'm sure it's going through their head, okay, is he talking to us as our son, or as our priest. But still, we try to take seriously that role in relationship. One of the more foolish things that has crept into popular kind of thought in regards to faith is this idea that, well, let them choose. We don't do this to anything else with kids. Right? I imagine if my brother, when their kids were young, was like, oh, well, let them choose what they eat. We'll let them choose when they go to bed. We'll let them choose what they wear. All these different, and so on and so forth. I pray for those children. Right? I'm thankful that my mom and dad did not let me choose what I ate every day. They presented me, they said, no, this is what mom has made, this is what dad has made and presented. Right? Dad used to always say, did you make it? No, then eat it. Trust me, I use those words later on in life too, and he would like, okay. Remember when I was making supper one time, it's not something he particularly looked appetizing to him, and I looked at him and was like, Dad, did you make it? No, then eat it. He was consistent, even with himself. Right? And I'm thankful. But see, the thing is, when you do that, you give something for children to gauge the rest of the world with. I think again it's like with one's cuisine growing up with. Help me gauge the rest of my world with. I grew up with a very carb-rich farmer Acadian diet, and I realized as I gauged the rest of the world, they're like, hold on a second. This may have been suitable for my father and my grandfather and his father that were extending themselves each and every day in heavy physical labor. I spend them all the time sitting at a desk, not doing too. Maybe this might not be the most prudent thing to help me to gauge the rest of the world and to make certain decisions by, but it gave me a foundation to start from. And so too our faith. If you send someone out with nothing, no foundation, what do they have to gauge the rest of the world? We get lifeless. And then we'll cling to anything that makes some level of sense, even if it has no grounding. And so we want to provide that firm foundation, especially when it's true. Right? And part of this ongoing journey of faith involves teaching them the values of compassion, justice, mercy, showing them how to live as disciples in a world that often contradicts these ideals. Furthermore, the presentation of the Lord is also a call for us to reflect on our own presentation before God. At every Mass, we present ourselves to Him. We bring ourselves, offering our prayers, our struggles, our joys, our sorrows. And so like Simeon and Anna, who recognized the presence of God in the temple, we are invited to open our eyes and our hearts to the presence of Christ in our lives and in the lives of others. Let's consider the role of Anna, this prophetess who dedicates her life to worship and prayer. See, her faithfulness and perseverance reminds us of the importance of waiting on the Lord. In a world that often demands immediate results, Anna teaches us the value of patience and to trust in God's timing. Are we willing to wait for the Lord in our own lives? Trusting that He will reveal His plans for us in due time. So as we celebrate this feast, let us renew our commitment to be a light in the world, reflecting the light of Christ in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions. Let us present ourselves to God, offering our lives as instruments of his peace and love. May we strive when we draw strength from the example of Mary, Joseph, Simeon, Anna, and may we strive to live out our calling as followers of Christ. Let us pray for the grace to recognize Jesus in our midst and to present him to others, sharing the good news of his love and salvation. May we, like Simeon, be filled with joy and gratitude as we encounter the light of Christ in our lives and in the world around us.